And now, aviation weather around Alaska. Hello, I'm National Weather Service meteorologist Peter Chan, now bringing you your aviation weather outlook for Sunday into Monday. Overall, we're seeing a broad area of low pressure in the upper levels of the atmosphere out here over the Bering, and weaker surface low pressure systems across much of the region coming back up into areas of the Gulf and the interior. There is a warmer ridge of high pressure back out here through western central Canada, creating drier and warmer conditions there, but with south-southwesterly flow aloft that's pulling moisture in off the Gulf and areas of the North Pacific and Bering Sea. Sunday morning early on, we expect IFR conditions along the Arctic coast, including Utqiagvik. And then along the Gulf Coast, areas of IFR Eastern Gulf up into the Northeastern Gulf near and west of Yakutat, as well as around Kodiak Island and the northern half of the Alaska Peninsula and Bristol Bay. Further west, IFR out there through the western Aleutians. On Sunday afternoon, we expect IFR conditions along the eastern and northern Gulf extending inland up into areas of the Copper River Basin, St. Elias, Wrangell Mountains, and then also southwestern Gulf along and especially there east of Kodiak Island, Shelikof Strait, and then along the Arctic, northwest Arctic coast, say areas around Wainwright and Utqiagvik, and then out toward the Pribilovs and central Bering areas of IFR, as well as south and west there along the Aleutian chain. MVFR conditions rather widespread across the western part of the state, extending inland up through the middle Yukon Valley and along the Brooks Range. And for Monday morning, we continue to see IFR conditions along areas of the Gulf up into Prince William Sound, also persisting IFR conditions along the northwest Arctic coast, with MVFR conditions areas of the North Slope, Brooks Range, and middle upper Yukon Valley along and south of the Alaska Range and along the west-southwest coast. IFR once you get west of Nunavik Island, including St. Matthew and just north of St. Paul, and then widespread IFR along the central western Aleutians. Monday afternoon, just weak areas of low pressure. We have the general upper level low sitting here, bringing in a moist fetch of cool marine air across the southwest coast. So we expect IFR, Kuskokwim, Bristol Bays, Nunavik Island, St. Matthew, St. Paul, up through St. Lawrence and through the Bering Strait. Also, IFR conditions are expected to persist into Monday afternoon. South of the Alaska Range, Talkeetna Mountains in through Prince William Sound and much of the northern and central Gulf. Pass conditions on Sunday, Anaktuvik Pass there and toward the central Brooks Range, Anaktuvik as well as Adigan Pass, MVFR conditions are anticipated. Lake Clark and Merrill will generally hold on to marginal visual flight rules during the day Sunday. So will Rainy Pass. As we get up to Windy Pass, we do expect VFR conditions by afternoon on Sunday. Further east, Isabel should generally stay within MVFR conditions, and Mentasta Pass also remaining MVFR throughout the day Sunday, but as you fly south down into parts of the Copper River Basin, expect to encounter some IFR conditions. Tanita Pass generally MVFR forecast throughout the day Sunday, and Portage Pass may become VFR by afternoon, with MVFR conditions holding out there along the east entrance, especially out over Prince William Sound. And then finally in the far northern panhandle at Chilkoot and White, MVFR conditions becoming VFR later Sunday morning and afternoon. Looking at freezing levels aloft, they are highest across central western Canada, 10 and 12,000 feet. Some very warm air across this region associated with a warm dome of high pressure. Back toward the west, we have a broad area of low pressure in the mid and upper levels of the atmosphere, and at the surface we have weaker low pressure systems kind of dotting the map. And as a result, the coolest air aloft is here across the central northern Bering into the southwest, freezing levels below 4,000 feet. Once we get south of the Alaska Peninsula, we see freezing levels bump back up above 12 and 14,000 feet down there into the North Pacific. Threat for icing will be greatest on Sunday along areas of the northwestern Gulf, eastern Kenai, Prince William Sound. Generally above 6,000 feet, there could be some moderate icing. Another area back toward near and north of St. Lawrence Island, generally above 4,000 feet in the cooler air mass, the moist cooler air mass that exists here out across the Bering. And then further south and west, just northeast of the western half of the Aleutians, some areas of icing above 10,000 feet. Upper level jet stream winds, we can see the circulation of the upper level low here sitting back toward the northern half of the Bering, with southerly flow coming in across much of south central, southeast mainland up into the interior. Behind me, a stronger jet core in excess of 100 knots coming in off of Kamchatka and the coast of Japan. Otherwise, down to 9,000 feet, 700 millibars, we still have a general low circulation here over the northern Bering, also a circulation in the western Gulf. Some stronger winds coming in there at 9,000 feet up through the area of the northeastern Gulf, extending into the interior mountains of the Yukon. 50, 60 knot winds from the south. And then behind me, a broad area of 40 to near 50 knots, certainly 40, 45 knot northwesterly winds across much of the Aleutian chain and lower portion of the Bering Sea. Bringing it down to 3,000 feet, we see the low circulation here over the southwestern Gulf, 40 to as high as 50 knots there in the south-southwest quadrant of that low circulation. Along areas of the Gulf coast, 40 to as high as 50 knots there, just nearing outside of Yakutat Bay. Winds from the south there, and then another circulation back out here in through the central northern Bering and also way off toward the Kamchatka coastline. Greatest threat then for turbulence on Sunday will be along areas of the northeastern Gulf Coast, including the Panhandle, some moderate turbulence, surface to 6,000 feet, in through areas of the central Alaska Range, surface to 10,000 feet. Surface to 6,000 feet there around entrance of Cook Inlet back toward Lake Iliamna and down along the east side of Kodiak Island. We also see an area of surface to 4,000 foot moderate turbulence back toward the central Aleutians, and then a little pocket up here in the northwest, surface to 4,000 feet, some turbulence around Point Hope, that area there in the Chukchi Sea coastline.